No, Chairperson. Chair.
Hello.
Yes, Chair. It's
Honorable at once.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to indicate that some of the portfolio committee members cannot hear anything. If the technical staff can also make sure that other members can also hear the presentation or be part of the meeting because they can't hear anything. Thank you, Chair.
Can I please suggest that the people who are not talking today, please switch their cameras off. The reason being is that the camera will slow down the internet connection, and those people who don't have really good or fast internet will keep cutting off from the call. So if you aren't talking, please switch your camera off.
Chair, do I have green light from your side?
Yes, DG. Before you just start, can we all of us switch our cameras off and allow DG? DG, you've got 30 minutes max. I know you, my DG.
Okay. What I will try and do, Chair, let me also take my own camera off.
No, DG, yours must be on.
It must be on.
You are live. You are live. Your camera must be on.
It's off. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, DG, the presentation is on. And
Okay.
I see you as well. So can you start?
No, thank you very much. As the Minister correctly indicated, let me acknowledge the Honorable Chair and the Honorable members and the Honorable Deputy Minister. As the Deputy Minister correctly indicated, this plan has been subjected to an extensive consultation process. And somebody was saying we've never consulted in the history of the department like we've done in the past few days. And the last consultation meeting or meetings were even yesterday. And part of the reason why, Chair, the Minister could not address the media and the public about the date of the reopening of schools on Monday, it's because a special request was made. For that to, and the intention of the minister is then to announce to the public either tomorrow or Friday. That's the only reason, but decisions taken by CEM on Sunday still remain. Chair, this is the plan. This is the outline of the plan. It covers these sections that are indicated here: the purpose, introduction, international experience, the size and shape of the sector, lockdown regulations, and then the actual pillar of the sector plan and the South African risk-adjusted strategy. And then and by the way, Chair, I'm going to try and do two presentations in one. When we'll be responding to answers, Mrs. Who's to do the second part of the presentation, because you've given us only 30 minutes. I will try and keep to that. So she'll be very helpful in terms of providing more info than the one that I would have presented. Well, in terms of the introduction, we all know from the medical aspects the science behind the development of this disease, that from where the first million cases of COVID-19 were found. And then we also know and eventually the National Coronavirus Command Structure taking the decision to declare a state of national disaster. And then also moved to regulations which were to limit the movement of people in South Africa for the purpose of the spread of the virus. As we now know from Professor Karim, that the flames that we see and the trees or the bush, the flame represent the virus, and then the trees or the bush represent the citizens. And we know that the lockdown was really intended to and the medical practitioners that screening, testing, and tracing. So that's that, Chair. And as the President said, we couldn't just remain with a lockdown. The lockdown is important, reducing the spread of the virus, but as we all know, it stops economic activity. So you have a choice of either dying from the virus, or if you continue with the lockdown because it remains a blunt object, then you might actually die of poverty and hunger. And that's why we're even talking about the gradual lifting of the lockdown. What is the international experience saying, Chair? Now, some of our critics are saying, why are we looking this far? Why should we talk about Taiwan? Why should we talk about Denmark? Why should we talk about Sweden and these other countries here? The simple logic is that these countries have gone through what we are starting to go through. And it's the only place where the experience might happen. Going through what we are starting to go through. And the only place where yeah.
Now what is this now?
It's because people have not muted their mics, and therefore it brings the echo. As I speak, then the echo comes back. So in terms of international experience, Chair, although very little is known, especially when it comes to schooling and COVID-19, but very interesting information is beginning to emerge. As we can see, Taiwan closed schools only for 2 weeks, and after that, social distancing, temperature screening, as we would have seen in some of the information that has been running even in the social media. And then in terms of China, also China closed the schools from 20th of January to the 6th of February. And therefore, schools had to be COVID-19 compliant. Denmark, a very interesting one. Denmark opened ECD centers and primary schools to grade 5 with no face masks, no COVID-19 essentials there in Denmark, almost similar to Sweden. Sweden never closed schools at all. And if you look at the spread of the virus is not, higher than in any of the countries that even came with other measures, including closing schools and so on. Singapore closed schools. In fact, did not close schools, and then when they experienced the spike, then closed universities. And some ECD centers remained open. So, as I said, Chair, there's very interesting information that is coming up. There's a journal called Lancet, which has also published some information about COVID-19 and school. The UNESCO, the World Health Organization, has also gathered some information around COVID-19 and schooling. And what is interesting is that, especially in the UK, there's information that from the increase of the virus by about 60%, schooling would have contributed only about 3%. And if you look at even countries like France and many others, including Sweden and others, the contribution that schooling makes in terms of the spread of the virus is almost insignificant. Now, this is who we are, and the reason why we are factoring this in is that in our planning, we need to take into account the magnitude of the sector so that whatever interventions that we are bringing in take into account the number of learners that we have, the number of educators that we have, and the number of schools that we have, both public.
The DG's mic is muted.
Yeah, somebody muted my mic from the center. Guidelines for social distancing, which will help to regulate movement in the school premises and socialize learners, educators, and non-educator staff on the new way of relating, engaging in activities in the school premises. These are the guidelines that we have developed, which even indicate that in your double combination desks, learners should not be more than 2 in a double combination. The other things, I think they are well known to all of us, Chair. The next slide is really to reflect on implications for infrastructure and school furniture. And what we are planning for is that classrooms, staff rooms be sanitized. All must be socialized around sanitizing hands on entering and leaving rooms, and limit the movement between classes and within playgrounds, and also getting learners being together in groups that are not more than 5 and so on. And the same applies to learner transport. And the point that we want to emphasize here, Chair, is that government will be responsible for learner transport provided by government and transport provided for by parents, which is private arrangement. The parents will have to see that the COVID-19 requirements are adhered to, and will be working with the Department of Transport also to ensure enforcement in terms of COVID-19 requirements. These are schools that require provision of water and sanitation urgently. We've given a geospatial reflection of that, showing all the 9 provinces. The only province that seems to be clear there is the Western Cape, as we can see. And these slides actually provide us more information on that. KZN leading, and then followed by Eastern Cape, Limpopo, and then Mpumalanga and the rest of the other provinces. The number of schools, 3,475 of those schools that require water supply. And the problem is delineated into those that require bowls, 1,000 of them, and those that require water tanks, pipes, and taps, 2,500. We are working with the Department of Water and Sanitation. The team met with them yesterday. They indicated to us that they were able to deliver water tanks, over 7,000 of them, in a period of 2 weeks. And therefore, half of that they could even deliver in a week's time if we contracting them through Rand Water. So that's the arrangement that we have made with the Department of Water and Sanitation, as well as Rand Water as the implementing agent. As I said, the CFO, the branch head, Mr. van der Westhuizen, and his team met with the implementing agent and some senior officials from Water and Sanitation yesterday to finalize arrangements. We'll be getting the report, the DG of Water and Sanitation and myself later today, Chair. Basic sanitation and hygiene package, working with the Department of Health and National Treasury, the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, the list of COVID essentials for schools and offices have been delineated. And for instance, we are talking about cleaning and disinfection materials, the PPs, in other words, personal protectors, washing soaps, gloves, cloth masks, and thermometers. We have procured those. We've been meeting with provinces this morning. We met with the Northwest. It is the third meeting that we meeting with provinces one-on-one to check their state of readiness in the procurement of all the COVID-19 essentials. We'll be providing every learner with 2 cloth masks for quintile 1 up to quintile 4 schools for a start, but going forward, we'll only be covering for quintile 1 up to 3. Teachers will be provided also with masks that are in keeping with affording teachers to be able to teach. Learners with special education needs, the deaf learners will need to sign in the course of learning and teaching, will be provided with different masks that are clear, so that to sign minimum of 2 thermometers. The temperature will be taken from registry day, and whenever you leave the school premises, when you come back, we'll have to take your temperature, and if the temperature is higher than what is required, and of course working with the Department of Health, will be training those who will be taking the temperature from all those who will be into school, be taken through the requisite protocol. Will then be expected to do this on a daily basis. And we've also provided guidelines of what people should follow in carrying this out. This slide is about what I have just spoken about, procurement on COVID-19 essentials, which has been a centralized process through the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. We've been working with National Treasury and provinces to make sure that they procured. All provinces have placed orders of COVID-19 essentials. Northwest indicated this morning that they've received of some. They're still waiting for some consignments to be delivered. So all 9 provinces have placed their orders. I can confirm that. Screening, as I said, screening will be done regularly in the morning when everyone arrives in the institution or the office. In our offices, as you can see, I'm in the office. We've started doing this immediately. The president announced the lockdown coming into our building. You have to be screened, and you can only get in if you are cleared from screening. And if the temperature is higher than what is expected, you'll be then put in an isolation room and then be referred to health practitioners who will do further examination to determine whether you need to be tested or not. Standard operation procedures. This is a very instrument that provides details on step-by-step of what should be done in case of any incident or any activities that are related to dealing with COVID-19 matters, and the standard operation procedure has been evolving over time. Provinces have made other stakeholders, like the Association of School Governing Bodies, to make comments towards strangers, so that when we reopen schools, this will be a document that will provide clear direction on what should be happening every step of the way. The orientation and training guidelines, we've developed this as well. Provinces have started already to develop their own training manuals. Some of them have started with virtual training. As you know that we've got 144 teacher centers across the country, and some of those centers are more prevalent in some provinces than others. So provinces are using them to carry out virtual training. Just the Eastern Cape, where every teacher and every official has got a laptop. The virtual training happens in the comfort of where they might be, whether it's in their homes or their offices. So virtual training is happening. We're providing even other materials which will be crucial to the orientation of learners, the orientation of teachers and non-teaching staff. This is the draft amended school calendar. Depending on what the minister will announce and based on the decision of CEM on Sunday, these dates are bound to change, but this is what we had planned for. We were short of about 9 days, but if the announcement is such that would still start schooling in May, because the other scenario where we had 9 days short of the full calendar year was when we were going to start schooling in July. People forget when they say that we've lost time, that we went on early recess just before going on school holidays, and the winter school holidays are your longest, up to even 3 to 4 weeks, and we're going to cut them to help any early school closure that we need to compensate for from the winter vacation days as well as the spring vacation days. The winter vacation is going to be shortened to a week, and then the spring will only be 1 day linked to a weekend, which will be a long weekend. And the details are provided underneath the curriculum recovery. These are principles guiding the recovery of the curriculum. And Chair, I can say that in many ways, many can attest to the fact that we've been able to do this. One is a case in point. Oliphant's Hoek in the Northern Cape is another one. Merafong in Carltonville is another one. You've got many of such examples all over the country, particularly for grade 12 learners, where we have a history of some of the measures that we employed where we were able to even recover the curriculum. So I'll move quickly. So the philosophy underpinning curriculum recovery is reorganization and trimming of the curriculum, but making sure that you secure the fundamentals. The annual teaching plans will be amended to be in line. As I said, your foundational skills must be secured. But content in terms of life orientation and life skills will also be rearranged to embed in it or to contain it awareness and knowledge about COVID-19, as well as personalized self-study skills, emotional and psychological. But we are also saying every subject and should contribute at least 5 minutes to watching awareness about COVID-19, so that it will help to enhance behavior change among our young people. They should not only hear this during orientation, they must hear it during the day, just like many years ago when we started about bringing awareness about HIV and AIDS, which is now continuing still in life skills and life orientation. We have to do the same about COVID-19. This is how the initial scenario about the phasing in was to happen. The aim was that we didn't cover learners with special education needs. Chair, you can now see the first column is about public ordinary schools, and your public special, and also have schools of skill, and then you've got another category of your special schools for learners with severe and intellectual disabilities, and then you've got your special care centers, which are under social development, and we're indicating the phasing in there. As part of managing the risk, Chair, we are saying we start with grade 12 and grade 7, which are your exit grades. These are your older learners who are much more matured, who will help to requisite infrastructure in primary schools, in high schools. For younger learners, when they come in, they help to orientate them in the new way of schooling. And we're saying you start with grade 12 and grade 7, and then you have 2 weeks in between, hopefully to get the country also to move to alert level number 3 or even number 2 in the course of time. But these are your least number of learners in there, and that's why we even choose them, because it helps to limit the risk also in terms of the number of learners that schools will have to deal. But also I needed to indicate that our plan is to make sure that before even learners, the school management team, which would include the principal, will arrive first. And then after that, teachers will come in, and then learners will come right at the SG will prepare for receiving COVID-19 essentials, for helping with the marking in the school for social distancing. And when the teachers come, they start with preparation before learners arrive. And then when learners arrive, they would find teachers and the SMT ready to receive them, to socialize them into the new way of schooling. So that is the phasing in there. Implications for exams. Exams which were supposed to be written in May, June, have now been moved to November. It has increased the number phenomenally from about 500, 600,000 to almost double that number, which we'll see in the number of marking centers, increase the number of even exams, and provinces have started to prepare for this. And I say that with these changes, the exam might be finished around the 1st or the 2nd week of December. Marking might take about 2 to 3 weeks, and therefore the release of the results might be 3rd week of January 2021, towards the end of January. And of course, as I said, the May, June have been, there won't be May, June exams, but in terms of the NSC, we're combining them with the November, December exams. But the usual June exam will not happen, but we'll use that for teaching. And therefore, preparatory exams in September will still happen. And as I indicated, the timetable will also be affected. These are the numbers, Chair. 1.1 million that we've never handled. It's unprecedented. That's a combination of June candidates plus the November candidates will be joining the November, December exam. Psychosocial support. We've done we've looked at different levels of our system, but we've also looked at the epicenters. The President talked about the 6 metros, but we are also saying provinces that do not have metros, there are epicenters in those provinces. Restrictions are going to vary from the risk-adjusted plan that has already been announced. So the restrictions would vary from national to provincial, district, up to local, and therefore we're getting ready to make sure that whatever eventuality up to school level and district level, school-based teams, district-based team to deal with trauma emotionally and psychologically. We'll be working with NGOs. Life is one which is in the education space, working with universities, but also with civil society broadly, faith-based organization to deal with incidents of emotional and psychological cruelty, remains very important to drive the back to school campaign. As we know, we've seen it in other countries that we referred to earlier on. Parents were very reluctant to release their children to go back to school. Anxiety and fear, which is understandable. Chair would have to prove that schools are indeed safe. And I must say that any school that does not meet the requirements will be ticking boxes of the requirements that are about, and school governing bodies and the school management team will be part of that. Such schools will not be allowed to form part of schools that will be reopening. In other words, when you don't meet the requirements that are indicated on the list that a team of lawyers in the basic education sector is busy working out, because we know that if we do not put reasonable measures in place to make sure that schools are safe, we will be litigated left, right, and center. We know we've been litigated on many areas, so we're making sure that we don't leave anything to chance here. This is our communication strategy. One of the major issues that we'll have to deal with is fake news, which has been quite rampant in the social media about many things. So our communication team, I met with them, I addressed them on these matters, and I believe that collectively, 9+1, we are ready to drive the message of what government is intending to do, and also to deal with challenges of fake news. The landscape of the sector has changed forever, and therefore we're also looking at investing quite heavily in teaching and learning, accelerate what the president said about devices to learners, educators, and officials, but also making sure that we change our business processes. Fortunately, DBE ran the business looking at that, and we have established 7 that will drive matters relating, including ICT. One of the committees is looking at ICT, the e-governance and e-learning. And these are what we call the non-negotiables. In other words, the basic necessities that are to be in place for reopening to sanitation and hygiene package, water and sanitation avoided what doing, cleaners, and in this case, it's not ordinary cleaning, it's called medical terms, biological, with a view of making sure that conditions do not themselves to the spread. Also, I've referred to screening. There will be screeners in every school, and we encourage parents also to acquire thermometers and to even screen their children, in their respective homes and so on, so that if the temperature of your is just above, for instance, 7, then you should consider not to release the child to go to school, but refer the child to a medical practitioner. Additional things to deal with overcrowd, and we have to make sure that we bring our classrooms to at least 40 and below, and some schools will be able to meet that, but we also know that some of our classrooms are overcrowded. We've been working with provinces. They've ordered even more. North was telling us this morning that they've ordered 400 of these mobile classrooms, which would be delivered. And we are also seeing incubation program for weaker and progressed learners who might have regressed during this period of the lockdown. We need to provide special support to them to make sure that they succeed. The risk-adjusted strategy, Chair, we know about it, 5 levels from the 1st of May will be on level 4. And our intention is to contribute to making sure that progressively the country moves up. Ideally, we would like to see the country and ourselves to level 1. But as I said, the medical evidence and the research that has been done by UNESCO, including WHO, indicates that the contribution that schooling makes to the spread of the virus is very, very small, and it's almost insignificant. And the danger that you might have, rather in terms of schooling, is the possibility of learners being infected by adults who happens to be teachers. And taking that into account, we don't leave anything to chance, and that's why we are saying we are going to put all reasonable measures in place, including the provision of all these COVID essentials that I've referred to. These slides just explain the significance of each of the levels, and this is the categorization of different services, including government services that are permitted to operate once the lockdown is gradually lifted. And this one is just reminding us that there will be restrictions district to local aid submissions for amendments coming from outside the country must be taken through the requisite protocols, but we will need those teachers to teach. And there will be some will be commuting from one province to the other, some will be commuting from one district to the other, some from one local municipality to the other. I've seen already some amendments that will find expression to the regulations that are going to be considered today by the NCCC. These are the preconditions for resuming activity, protection of vulnerable learners, teachers and non-teaching staff, safe transport for learners and for teachers and non-teaching, the screening of learners, teachers and non-teaching staff. They leave school premises, they have to be subjected to screening. Prevention of the spread of the virus, of surfaces and shared equipment, good ventilation, and managing sick learners as well as teaching staff and non-teaching staff. These are some of the rules that we are expected to observe. Learners with pre-medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, and others. Our communication has been advised already that once the minister announces to the nation, we need to take it out to the public for parents to be advised, to be aware of the pre-medical conditions that their children might have, and such children will be advised to learn from home. We'll be working with the Association for Home Education to make sure that those learners are supported and they are not lost out of the system. And employees will also be advised, and we are discussing this one with DBSA to give clear directions as to how we go about this, because we've got many teachers who would be 60 and above will need to be advised to work from home. And the issue of the cloth mask, I've covered that. We are making full provision on that. Sanitizers and stringent social or physical distancing measures. Chair, that is the end of my presentation. As I said, there were two parts to this presentation, but I've tried to combine them. I might not be able to stay for the duration of the question and responses because I have to join the minister in doing the same presentation to the National Coronavirus Command Council in a few minutes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, DG. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm not sure now.
ECD centers.
Hello. I'm not sure who is now our host, so that we can identify the hands of members that would want to to question the department or to suggest what needs to be done. Members must just take note that we are scheduled for 2 hours for this meeting. So can just our questions be precise, straight to the point? Can we note hands, honorable members?
When will ECD centers reopen?
Gabelo. Chairperson, my hand is up.
Chairperson, my hand
Hand is up.
We've got Chen Tabeleng.
Hand is up too.
Tabeleng and who? I've got Sukers.
Chairperson,
I've got Tembekwayo.
Chairperson, my hand is up.
I've got Machezi. Who else?
Chairperson.
Honorable members, can I just do the... Sorry? I've got Tabeleng, I've got Murwatsetla, I've got Sukers, I've got Tembekwayo, I've got Machezi.
Don't have no chair.
Ziwela.
Gillian.
I've got Gillian. I've got
Honorable
T.
Epstein. Honorable Epstein.
I've got Epstein.
Christian.
Honorable Lutuli. I've got Lutuli. I've got you, King.
Honorable Dutoy.
I've got Dutoy.
Christians.
I've got Bacha.
Christians.
I've got Christians.
Sorry? Vilagazi.
I've got Vilagazi.
Nobo.
I've got Nobo.
Bosho.
I've got Van der Waal.
Shazia.
I've got
Chair
Lama.
was suggest.
Shazia.
Okay. Honorable members, can I take the first? I'm going to take the first 10.
Can I be the last chair?
I'm gonna take the first 10, and then after that I'll continue if time allows, and if we've got.
You'll make the second round.
Yes.
You'll make the second.
Can I ask all of you to mute your microphones?
Chairperson, can you at least give us, Chair?
Raise my hand.
Chair, can you give us time allocation so that all of us were able to raise our views? Chairperson?
Yes, I'm going to do that. Can we switch off your mics?
Okay, Chair.
All right, I've got a suggestion.
Can everybody switch off their mics? I have noted Honorable Nchabeleng will be the first speaker, and each speaker is allowed at least 2 minutes. Straight to the point. Please don't greet us. We know you are here. Don't greet, just straight to the point. Raise your view, and the department will respond. So officials will take questions related to them of the department. I have noted Honorable Nchabeleng, and after you, immediately Honorable Murwatsetla, you must get in. And after Murwatsetla, immediately Sukers, you must get in. And immediately Tembekwayo, you get in. And Honorable Machezi, you will get in. In that order, can we try to be precise, Honorable members? Honorable Chair, you can take over. Thank you.
Quickly, a suggestion. It would actually be easier if the person wrote their
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Chair, you can proceed.
Yes. Thanks for the presentation, Chair. I just want to say that I don't think we're going to have enough time for everybody to ask questions. So my suggestion that members should write their questions down and then send them through the committee, the two committee secretaries, and then the questions will be given to the department where they will respond in writing to those questions to all members. Or in the next meeting, those questions will be answered. Thank you very much. My little question is in relation to infrastructure for COVID.
Honorable Chabeleng.
After this pandemic, so that we don't build structures that we may not need. And I'll suggest that maybe we look at rotating schools, maybe let's say like in the past or in Mozambique particularly, let's go to Mozambique, where schools start 7 o'clock in the morning and they end at 7 in the evening. So children attend according to shifts, they take shifts in attending school. So there'll be grade 3 will have 4 classes in one day or 3 classes in one day. Of course, yeah, maybe we could use even other structures like, churches, including schools that were closed some years ago because of numbers of students. Thank you, Chairperson.
Ratsetla. Honorable Murwatsetla. Honorable Sukars, can you hear me?
You, Chair, can you hear me?
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
I can hear you, Chair.
Can you proceed in the meantime?
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
Chairperson, my question, I have 3 questions. The first
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
If the department can please provide us with an answer around schools.
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
But whose phone is doing that, honorable members?
Your call has been placed on hold. Please wait.
Can proceed, Honorable Sugars.
There are schools in poor communities that are falling in quintile 4 and 5. We've brought this up with the Deputy Minister in previous meetings, and I know that in the Western Cape, the provincial government has actually made application for those schools to be moved to quintile 3. I need to know whether the department is going to make provision for those schools in terms of protective equipment, like masks and that, because the DG indicated that the masks, sanitizers and all that is per quintile up until quintile 3. And I'm concerned about the schools that falls within poor communities that are assessed as quintile 4 and 5. That's the one question. The second question is, the DG has referred to international schools like Sweden. I just want to know, our situation is very different. And the concern is that the spread of COVID-19 is going to escalate, specifically because we have our children and parents that are living with immune diseases that compromises their immune system, like your HIV and TB. Have we taken that into consideration, that the children that are at risk, that are going to return to school, are now going to be exposed? That is my second question. And Then lastly, Chair, just in terms of the dates that the department has now communicated on the presentation, are those dates set, or are they reviewing the dates? Because there is confusion whether, when school is actually starting. Those are my questions.
Honorable Tembekwayo.
Can I come in now? Chairperson.
Oh, you are back. Okay. Can you come in, please, straight to the point, Honorable Muratsetla?
Great. Madam Chair, let us welcome and appreciate the report. Very important is we can't afford to miss this, and we can only miss this if we miss the timing. And hence, I would say our role as members of the portfolio committee is rather to advise the minister and the department with regard to the timing of this whole process. And for this reason, I would say at the same time, very important is the issue of how best we are going to address overcrowding in our schools, which is persistent as we speak. And number 3 is the issue of how we are best going to address the whole issue of ablution facilities within our schools and water provision. The department has tried to say that, but practically speaking, will that be implementable within our deep rural schools? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Muratsetla. Honorable Tembekwayo. Honorable Tembekwayo, are you there? Honorable Machezi?
No, I'm available. I'm here.
Okay, can you proceed, ma?
Can I speak?
Yes, you may.
Yes, I was just saying my first question is based on the nearly 200 schools that have been burgled or vandalized and some of them set alight. My problem is we haven't received on the improvement of those schools, there are 183. Especially when we think about what the DDG said of the provision of 400 mobile classrooms, to say where are these 400 mobile schools going to be distributed, and how far are they with the repair of the schools that have been burgled if we need to start going to school. And then the second one is in connection with the digital transformation versus accessibility and affordability of the instruments by the learners and educators, inclusive of the parents as well, especially those that are staying in the remote rural areas. The connectivity is a problem. So what is the department ready to do to provide the connectivity to all the learners as it was specified? And then to continue to say there are very poor learners who were dependent on the national schools nutrition. Nothing has been said about the provision of food parcels to those poor families, inclusive of the learners. So we haven't been told about it. And the other one is based on the psychologists who will be made available to help it during this period. I just would like to know the distribution, how many psychologists or social workers will be made available to individual schools as it may be. So it's very much important to be for the department to provide us with such information. And what is going to happen to schools if they do not meet the requirements as it was said? What will happen to the kids that are attending those schools? will the department be ready to supply all the learners in South Africa with the tablet so that they can be able to access whatever the information that is provided? Thank you.
Honorable Machesi.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just have a couple of questions. The issue of classrooms, with regards to what we have heard from the department saying that we'll have 2 learners sitting on a desk, on one desk. That contravenes the regulations of 1.2 meter distance. How are we going to handle that? Because I don't see that happening if you have 2 learners sitting on one desk. And also, my other issue is that we're talking about 40 learners in a classroom. Already we know that 40 learners in a classroom as well, it is over and above the requirements according to the regulations. Why have you opted for that? And what is the position of health? Have you received approval to go ahead with that? And the other thing, the department has said, the DG has said that learners from grade R, I think up to grade 4, will receive masks. But then we have the learners that are going to school on the 6th of May, the grade 12 and the grade 7. What will happen to them? Will they be receiving the masks as well? What are arrangement on that view? And also, the learners that are at school currently, obviously they are not receiving any education. But there are schools that have been providing some kind of teaching using online and specifically WhatsApp groups. So I just want to find out, in terms of the department, what is there a clear directive for teachers on distance learning, and are they being equipped with the necessary skills? And also, if they are receiving training on distance learning, and also how many learners currently are having that privilege of being on a WhatsApp or having some online training, and what has been done to ensure that all the other learners are able to access the education online? Because obviously, if we're talking about learners going back to school the end of June, that means that the other learners are basically sitting at home. What has been done to ensure that they receive some kind of education? And are they also provided with data? Because some learners will obviously need the data. And the other thing is, finally, it's the fees. Parents are paying fees currently. Some of them they've paid in January. So what happens to those parents? Because now they're saying that they're paying for the data. What happens to them, including the ECDs? When are they going to open? And should they be continuing to pay for the fees when their learners are not really at school? Is there a provision? Can maybe the president make a determination on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Machesi. Honorable King.
Chairperson, I'd first like to find out on school nutrition. The minister actually said that school nutrition over by the Department of Social Development. I just wanted to find out what processes was followed. Did social development take over school nutrition? And also the regulations that came into play of hot foods. Have that been taken into consideration? Because we've seen a lot of learners that are out there that are still struggling to access school nutrition. When we talk about learner transport, Chairperson, we have to keep in mind that most of the transport providers will have to have PPEs available. So are we going to ensure that they come with a clearance certificate to make sure that they are also cleared of not contracting the virus for them to easily transport learners? Will they be then budgeted for a double transport because they will not be able to have a full contingent in their taxis when they transport learners? So I would like to have clarity on that as well. Then when it comes to connectivity and data costs, which have already been mentioned, we should also keep in mind that the language of instruction and learning is totally different for how a parent would do it. So I would like to find out how we're going to get around that. Will videos be set up, especially in the rural areas where poor connectivity is available, which have already been mentioned by other people. Then, Chairperson, also, I've heard what the DG said, but was there a proper needs analysis done on schools as to how many educators actually have underlying problems, how many learners have underlying problems? Are schools really equipped to open? How soon can they open? Because we can hear all of that, but when you look at provinces like the Eastern Cape and KZN, how feasible will it be for those rural schools to open on time, Chairperson? That's all for now, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Gillion. Honorable Gillion, can you hear me?
I'm coming. Chairperson, thank you very much. Coming from the Western Cape Chair and representing the Western Cape Province in the NCLP, please allow me to give some inputs that were asked and communication that I received. Chairperson, COVID-19 will affect provinces unequally, and which will compromise the exams as a national one. Chairperson, now more than ever, the inequalities within our society is going to test us as a government in this country. Now, Chairperson, a lot of questions and a lot of issues has been raised by community in the Western Cape, and some of the concerns are as follows. The Western Cape at this point in time is the epicenter for COVID-19. We can see, Chairperson, that what is happening around us is really not assisting us as communities within the Western Cape. Now, certain issues within basic education that has happened before lockdown and before this pandemic has not been resolved. If we look into learner transport, the overcrowdedness of schools, the infrastructure that is happening, and all other issues in this province. Now, our question, and my question to the committee and to the Deputy Minister, is can you give us the reassurance that the Western Cape is ready for schools to open? We are concerned about the safety of all communities within this Western Cape. The inequalities has come out to the fore during this lockdown, especially in this province. Do you have a monitoring and evaluation team in place? Because if the Western Cape is still the epicenter and we experience that the rise of infections is very high in our province, did you take this into consideration when you bring out and when you did this presentation? We can't, and I want to ask, did you look into the issues, are the planning and everything in place in the Western Cape? And the issues that I referred to that was there before lockdown, has it been resolved? Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Suela, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me? Chairperson, thank you.
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Two questions from me. One, the DG said that they had procured 400 classes to date. What is not clear though is how many classes do we need, additional classes do we need for all the schools in order to cater for all the learners. Secondly, In the event where there will be platooning of schools, will there be transport arrangement for learners who might leave late at the end of the school day? And thirdly, the learners who currently are sharing desks, will there be furniture procured for each learner? And will this furniture be available on time when the school reopens? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sowela. I'm now on Honorable Epstein.
Honourable members, I'd just like to understand what is happening in the ECD sector. When will the ECD sector be sort of planned into the timetable? And then secondly, with regards to after-school curricular activities, what is going to happen? What is being made available for those students who require feeding schemes, as well as child minding during the time that their parents are going to be at work? What is going to be put in place for these children, as well as when is the ECD sector planned to be opened? Thank you very much, honourable members.
Thank you, Honorable Epstein. Honorable Lutuli.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible, Honorable Member. Can you proceed?
Thank you, Chair. Since I'm coming from KZN in the NCOP, I would like to know how are we going to deal with our communities, because as it is now, the anxiety and the fear in our communities for taking their kids back to school. And also, in our presentation, there were non-negotiable preconditions for the reopening of schools. So I would like to know whether our schools are in the process of being sanitized, and also the EPWPs that are going to be our cleaners and also our screeners. Are they being tested as we speak? Because if those people are not being tested prior to our reopening of schools, that means those people are going to infect our kids, because we are not sure whether they are positive or negative. And also, Chairperson, since I come from KZN and we have a lot of schools in our rural areas, the infrastructure is not in the condition to meet all these non-negotiable conditions. What is the department is doing about those schools? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Lutuli. Honorable Malachi, can you hear me?
Whip, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, you are audible. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Whip. I think one of the things that this COVID-19 has showed us is that inequalities are very high, and even in areas like these ones, some learners who are from privileged backgrounds were catching up via all kind of learning, whether it's MC or Zoom. But the most important thing that I want to emphasize as a way forward and as a question is the issue of transportation. And I heard the DG speaking about those who are using private transportation. They will be responsible for their own movement and checking. And I think it's very risky, because the same learners are the ones that are going to be in class with those that will be using public transports that will be sanitized and checked, and the drivers wearing masks and making sure that each and every learner in a bus is wearing gloves and masks. Now, how do we monitor the private transportation? Now, those are areas that I need to check in. But I think as a way forward, I think there must not be any learner that is utilizing private transport. It must be a transportation that is put in place by the department to make sure we monitor so that the spread of virus doesn't happen. Another issue that is huge is the issue of the feeding scheme. We know very well that learners queue when they are going to collect their nutritious food at school. Now, how are we going to manage that? Are we going to collect food in groups of 5, or how are we going to do it? Because in most cases, this virus is spread in queues, because in queues people push each other, and which systems are putting in place, because we know that a lot of our schools have got shortages of staff and security guards. Now, how are we going to put in place to make sure that there's a proper 1 meter system in place that is placed to assist the process. Now, those are part of the issues that I wanted to raise, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Malachi. Honorable Tutoi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I've been partially covered on the ECD as well as the after-school facilities. I want to know the DBE books from the Department of Basic Education is not available at some schools in the Northwest Province. What plan does the department have to ensure that these books are delivered to the schools before the classes commence? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Tutoi. Honorable Parker, can you hear me? Honorable Parker?
It's Parker, Chair.
Parker, my apologies, Honorable Member. Can you proceed?
Accepted. Chairperson, firstly, I want to talk on the issue of dates. I see that the dates are tentative as they are put on the report by the DG. But the 6th of May is the first date for learners to go back to school. Now I'm worried about the issue of readiness in terms of having all the non-negotiables in place before the 6th of May, because I think it's too soon, and I think that is too short a notice in terms of preparation. Secondly, Chair, there's online schooling, which I think was mentioned earlier, which is currently underway. But I'm not sure as to what extent is our rural schools in keeping with that online schooling, because we would not want learners from rural areas to be kind of out of the system. Thirdly, Chair, in terms of monitoring the compliance, who is going to do the monitoring to see that there's compliance in terms of what the department is putting forward? And the other one is social distancing. There's transport used by learners, which is procured by parents. How do you make sure that there's social distancing? And the fact that children should be a group of 5 or not more than 5 in schools to keep up with social distancing. How do you monitor that? Who's going to be there to make sure that you are counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if it's beyond that, then you must break them up? Because I think that for me, the report as presented does not give confidence to parents to be sending their kids to school. Because I see comparison done with Singapore and other countries who have quite a less number, a few in terms of population comparing to ours. Singapore is about 2 million people at most, and we have more than 55 million. So how do you do comparison of such? Because I think that comparison should be apples with apples, but as it is, I don't think that we are really ready to send the children to school, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in sanitation and all the provisions that the department has already put forward. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, your mic.
Honorable Christians, Honorable Christians, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. My question is around screening. Screening at schools. By whom and how often will it be done? Surely teachers will not be expected to do such screening, as there is an added risk to these teachers. And also, obviously, they haven't received the necessary training to do the screening. Does DBE think that provinces have the capacity in regards to human resources to send trained healthcare staff to each school every single day to do the necessary screening? And if so, can we have that per province and per school? And then my second and last question, what is the department's plan with regards to the schools that have been vandalized? Will these schools be ready for learners and staff to return to teaching and learning? And obviously, if these schools are not ready, this poses an added risk to all that is involved at the school. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Vilakazi, can you hear me? Honorable Vilakazi? Tatungobo uyandiva?
I can. Ngiyakuzwa, Honorable Chairperson. Can I go on?
I can hear you, Chair.
Yeah, now, thank you very much. Look, Chairperson, my very first problem is where the DG started. He was trying by all means to convince us that it's the right time or it's the right thing to do to open the schools now so that we do not lose time. We agree with everybody that time is of essence, it's important. But if I were given time to choose between time and life, I would insist that it is better to have life than time. I do believe that this was done in a rush. But having said that, before I continue, Chairperson, I want to also ask that we be given the presentations as a matter of urgency, simply because we have a duty here to make sure that the correct thing happens. We have that responsibility. There is the issue of space, social distancing. There is definitely, it's surprising that all of a sudden the department seem to be having all this capacity, which I doubt it has. Social distancing is going to be a problem. I'm not asking, I am saying. We have classes of 50 in average. Actually, most of them are above that. Divide that accordingly, it gives you more than 3 classes, and we will not have that. We have that classes will be supplied in the form of the prefabs, and I am saying we are actually exposing the country to a serious risk. We have to prepare for that risk when it happens, because immediately the kids go back to school. These nice stories will definitely not happen. When it comes to the issue of teachers, having observed social distancing, where are teachers going to come from? We don't have them. Is the department at least going to maybe try and canvass the retired teachers as well to come in and play a role, because this is actually a serious matter. And there are schools which are paying school fees. I'm saying it again, they are paying school fees. Is the department going to make sure that under these circumstances, all those learners will be catered for? Because no one at this stage will be expected to be having money under this serious pandemic. Chairperson, a lot of things could not be heard, like I said, and we are appealing for the presentation to be sent. Like the dates were not clear as to when actually, from my side, when actually is schooling starting, and the way they are going to be phased in, and the examinations, and the issue of transport, which has been, of course, raised. But I want to emphasize the issue of transport, that unless there is transport for learners everywhere, in particular the rural schools, we are heading for a serious disaster. Learners are transported by vans in the rural areas, and there will be no social distancing. I want to put it to stop at that, although there are quite a number of points there to raise. It's doubtful whether we are doing the right thing.
Honorable Van der Walt.
Honorable Vilakazi is back, Madam Chair.
Okay, Honorable Vilakazi, you can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to ask Madam Chair on the question of nutrition.
what is going to happen to learners that are at home compared to those that are going to be in schools? And the second question is around vulnerabilities. We know that the majority of our communities are black, led by women, poor, and some of them are sex workers and migrants and domestic workers who currently are unemployed. And how is this plan going to address the question of equity and in terms of inequalities as well, that vulnerable groups find themselves in relation to data at home and data in schools? The question of electricity, a number of our communities, we know, particularly in rural communities and townships, are struggling at the moment, Madam Chair, in terms of accessing electricity. How are we going to mitigate those factors? The question of food, how is food going to be distributed between those learners who are home and those that are in schools? And the question of gender-based violence, Madam Chair, where we have seen during this lockdown our young girls and women who are expected to perform certain chores and carry the burden of caring for their loved ones who are sick, who could possibly be even COVID positive as we speak. How are we going to mitigate the fact that those learners are not left behind and to deal with the whole question of exclusions? In terms of essential services, Madam Chair, I would like to ask around accessibility of materials of learning like textbooks. Is it possible that we have our textbooks be listed as essential services? I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Van der Walt.
Voorzitter, good morning, colleagues. Chairperson, let me start off by the first thing, and this is the dates that were set up. I'm just very nervous that the provinces are where the implementation of the plans will happen. Now, can the DG please tell us that all 9 provinces are absolutely ready to start next week? If they are not, will the minister tomorrow announce maybe a small postponement? Or, parents and our learners are very nervous and very worried that they might get COVID-19. So if the schools aren't ready, will they continue? That's a question we get almost every day. And may I also ask, we know that there are inter-provincial and inter-town travelling prohibiting rules currently. And what will happen to teachers and of course learners that are visiting their parents in different provinces or at caretakers like grandparents, etc.? What provision was made for that travelling? And we had no indication, DG, on hostels. What's happening at our school hostels? Because several of these grades that will start next week, or grade 7 and 12s, are indeed also attending to hostels, and some of the teachers we know. May I also ask, Chairperson, we know that parents, due to financial constraint, cannot afford all the school fees anymore. Will the department look at assisting, for example, SGB posts, that we don't lose those teachers? And also under finance, the payment to schools normally by May and November this year, whether the department will look at bringing those payments forward to now to assist schools during this terrible, tough times on their finances. And may I also ask whether the department is working on something like a standard operating procedures document? If so, when will it be ready? When will all provinces have it? And when will we and the public be advised what is in it? May I also ask that under finance, that we put more emphasis, due to the financial strain of parents again, that we try and get free data for every learner or student. We must also look at the students at varsity. Chairperson, I think there's a lot of duplication on the questions raised,
But I think it's sad to say, but that the pandemic is now warning us and that we must get our act together in education. We must go back to not more than 40 learners per classroom. We must make sure that our learners have proper desks to sit at, and that we must make sure that money meant for infrastructure, water, sanitation is spent appropriately all the time. Thank you,
I will have
Chair.
to cut you now. Honorable Langa.
Madam Chairperson, may I interrupt? Hello? May I interrupt?
Chair, you are mute.
Who wants to interrupt? Honorable Langa, are you there?
No, Chair, let's not have interruptions, please. Let's not have interruptions.
Honorable Langa, are you there? Honorable at once? Honorable at once, can you hear me?
I am not here.
There are data issues.
Yes, can you proceed, Honorable at once?
Can I continue there?
Please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me just start with the concerns that I think we have experienced during this the meeting or the visual meeting. Firstly, this presentation was not audible enough. I don't think our community and parents got the message of what the DG was presenting. But secondly, Chair, also, I think we must take ourselves seriously. We were made aware that these meetings will be live, and we see members wearing caps in a meeting. I think we must actually condemn that. It's not a proper dress code for such meetings. Chairperson, I would like also to agree with most of the members that raised several concerns on the presentations, but the presentations also is covering everything that the department is planning to do and achieve, you know, and we know that it's not 100% possible. Even before the COVID-19 lockdown, Chairperson, we know we have several challenges of ranging from infrastructure, school nutrition, transportation, you name them, Chair. We're experiencing and we've raised our concern in some of the reports that we got from the department. We interrogated them. We even went for oversight in Limpopo, and we saw some of the schools that were not in a good condition. But there's a slide there, Chair, that I want to align myself with, that it says it is always seems impossible until it is done. Chairperson, my concern is on the issue of negotiables. Yeah, the non-negotiables, Chair, pardon me, that the department must not even bargain with, to say if the school is not ready. If the school is not ready, it's not or the safety kit and all that, it must not even attempt to open. And the department must demonstrate to us that they will even do a physical verification in making sure that schools are in a good shape, are compliant, and everything that is needed to be there is in place. Because if we're not going to do that, Chair, we are going to find ourselves in a predicament of having now to put the lives of the young ones, the teachers, and the staff at risk. and when they could have been safe at home. So we must make sure that whatever it is that we practice at home, it must also be practiced at school. All the safety precautions must be practiced and must be on point. So my concern also, or my clarity to the department, it will be on the issue of piloting. I would call it piloting because it goes with phases. The first phase of having grade 7 and grade 12 resuming classes. Will that be done in all the provinces? That is the first thing that I wanted to raise, or even in all the schools that is the two grades. And if the schools are not ready, what is the plan of the department? What is it that they are going to do to make sure that even those kids or learners are not going to be left behind because of those challenges that the school will be facing? Is there any second plan or plan B on making sure that those kids will also be able to catch up, Chairperson? But I think most of the things has been addressed, and I think I will pause there. But Chairperson, I think we must allow the department to demonstrate to us as a portfolio committee if they are ready. If they are not, Chairperson, they must also indicate that we do not want any lives that will be lost in our hands. Hence, if the president saw it fit that we must go for lockdown so that we curb this pandemic or the coronavirus chair. So we must not also ourselves find ourselves putting lives of innocent people, innocent young future of this country at risk. We must be sure and we must demonstrate that the schools are ready to be reopened. I'll pause there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I have tried to cover all the hands, and we are really running out of time now. The presentation is sent to all the members, as Honorable Ngobo has asked. And I think we need to appreciate the work that has been done by the department behind the scenes. If the plans are changing, one would just ask the department to communicate. Let's communicate. Let's make sure that our people know what is happening. We are all stressed. We do not know. We never knew that the COVID-19 is going to stress us like it is doing now. But the reality of the matter, we need to work together. We need to understand that even if our kids go back to school, it is not going to be an easy process. There will be challenges that will be accompanied by that. And I think ours will be to support, and as members of Parliament, what we need to do is to be there on the ground and try to see those challenges so that we can alert the department. DM, let me hand over to you so that you can start to respond, and then you'll hand over to your officials. I'm not sure if the DG is still there or he left, but over to you, DM.
I'm not sure if the DG is still there. Thank you very much. I don't know whether we have sufficient time that we can take everything to all the officials that are here. Because to me, issues that I think are critical, which are raised by members, is that the date of the 6th, is it realistic? And or that the children can go to school. And also one other thing is school nutrition, learner transport, infrastructure, overcrowding, and connectivity in rural areas. Chair, when the DG started presenting, he indicated that we are going to shrink, not even shrinking, but rework the curriculum on the internal grades, except for grade 12, because grade 12, as we speak, papers have been set and papers are ready. So the grade 12 learners
we are going to make sure that we put some extra effort and Chair, can I continue? Okay, I don't know if I'm audible, but I'm not on mute. I'm saying, Chair, on these other grades, we are only going to look at the strategic topics, that we cover all the strategic topics, that when they move to the next grade, they at least have the content of the previous grade. Chair, we appreciate, when I introduced this matter, I said we would love to get guidance from the members. And in the inputs of members, some of the things to me are guiding the department. We cannot say we are presenting a cast and stone plan if the members of the portfolio and select committee see some gaps that you cannot go on this. Like yesterday, after presenting to the social cluster, the social cluster indicated that the date of the 6th is not realistic. So we need to change it, which the presentation that I have now, that date is changed, Chair. But the principals and chairpersons of SGPs are reporting on the 4th. They are reporting so that they look at all the things that will be needed when teachers come. So that when teachers come, they must come ready with masks. We don't want to risk, because in this situation where we are, Chair, we don't have to risk lives. And at the same time, we feel as a sector that we need to protect the academic year, because there are those smaller babies that would want to go to grade R next year. And the grade R must shift space to go to grade 1 and all the grades. But we should not compromise lives. Life is more important than an academic year. That we fully understand as the department. And that's why we say we cannot just sit back and fold our arms. On the issues of infrastructure, Chair, yes, we do have overcrowding in most of our schools, especially in the big cities. We are saying we are going to use a phase-in approach, which means when only grade 12s in secondary schools come, then it will tell us exactly how many spaces are left for the next grade, because they're not going to come today, then the following day the next grade come. Then they will come in trenches. And at the same time as they come, we gather experience and we improve on all the preparations that we have, because there can be things that we think we are ready, and when coming practically to school, we find that there is a bit of a challenge. Then we'll be working on that. But I'm not saying we are going to be risking the grade 12s and the grade 7s, because as they come, they will have sufficient space, no matter how small a school is. If it's only one grade that is coming, Chair, then there will be sufficient. And at the same time, there's a question about the 400 mobile classrooms which have been procured. We cannot say now the 400 mobile classrooms are all that we need. Even the schools that are touched, the touched one, we are going to give them the mobile classrooms. And if they need 5 or 6 for the grade 12s, and monitoring the distance, and which answers also the question of the desks. The desks that we're speaking about are not those desks, the single desk. It's a double desk. We are going to monitor the space that, and it's not 2 meters, Chair. Yes, we need to protect our learners, but Department of Health told us of 1 meter and 1.5 meter. So when we speak of 1.5 meter, the double desk can be able to cater for 2 learners. But if that does not work, because the department for the readiness is not going to work alone. For the sanitization of the school, of the schools, Department of Health will be there, and Department of Health will guide the department and say, no, this school is not ready. That's why this plan is a plan, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. And we know that situations differ from province to province. Like they were raising a case about Western Cape and Gauteng as epicenters of COVID-19. So we cannot say when the situation does not allow that learners can go to school, then we say, no, go to school. Another issue, the learner transport. Chair, on the issue of learner transport, there is the learner transport that is provided by government. That one, there's no compromise. The parent is responsible for the child from home until the bus stop. Then when the child comes at the bus stop, when the child enters the bus, then the department takes responsibility. And that's why we say every child must enter a bus with a mask on, and that mask will be provided by the department. There's a question by Honorable Machesi, which she didn't get it right when DG presented, because she thinks that DG said we are going to provide masks for grade R to grade 4. No, DG said the department is going to provide masks from quintile 1 up to quintile 4. Then quintile 5 schools, parents will provide. But if the portfolio committee says we must provide for all, that we are going to look at. But at the same time, we are saying because parents in quintile 4 and 5 are responsible for most of the things of the learners, including transport. That's why the learners use transport that is arranged by parents. That's why we say parents live in South Africa. They also comply to the rules and regulations of COVID-19 in the country. So we cannot say parents will do their own and put the children in an overload. And as we are going to face in, grade 12s cannot fill the bus. If the bus is full, then we'll have to provide a second bus in the scholar transport. But issues of overcrowding for now and issues of shortage of teachers for now does not come to the picture when we face in grade 12 and grade 7. Because even those teachers that are teaching the other grades will come to school. Yes, I do get a question that teachers do not qualify to screen. But screening wherever we go in the police stations, I'm screened by a police officer, and that police officer is not a health official. So the Department of Health will train our officials, will train our teachers. Those whose learners shall not have come to school, then they shall be trained, and the teachers will be doing the screening under the supervision of the Department of Health after having been trained by the top. Yes, there's a question by Honorable Sukers about the quintile 4 and 5 in the Western Cape, and some quintile 4 and 5 in poor communities. Those ones, we are not working as robots. The departments know, the departments, provincial and the districts and DBE, we know the challenges in each and every community. So if we understand that, yes, they are in quintile 5, but there is a challenge, we'll come back and sit down and see how do we help. And those who have applied will check the application as to at what level is it, and then it will be approved if they meet all the requirements for being graded as quintile 1 to 3. So quintile 1 to 3, on the issues of scholar transport, Honorable Malazi, that is the responsibility of government. So that one is not a question, and we will transport the learners. There's an issue about retired teachers coming in. The presentation here said the COVID-19 regulations said people who are 60 and above should be encouraged to work from home. So we cannot take retired teachers. We are putting them in a risk when we say retired teachers come back to school. We do have teachers that are still not employed at the age of 28, 30 years. And those ones, if really there is a need, they will come on board. Chair, if maybe I make this correction of the opening of schools, teachers, the principals and the SMT will be reporting on the 4th to look at, to make the schools to be ready and to receive all the COVID-19 sanitizers, etc. Then teachers will report on the 12th to restructure on the 11th, to restructure the timetables and look at other things. And those teachers who will not be teaching at the time will be trained. Then learners, the grade 12 and grade 7, they will be going to school on the 18th, according to this plan for now, subject for its approval. Like I'm saying, that it is being presented now to the command center as we are presenting it here to the portfolio committee. So it's a plan that I said earlier on that we are doing the processes concurrently. Water and sanitation, that one is a big challenge for the department, because most of the rural schools do not have water, especially in the Eastern Cape, where there is literally no water, and other rural provinces, like the presentation indicated, that number 1 is Eastern Cape, followed by KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo. We are working with the Department of Water and Sanitation, and the Department of Water, they are calibrating the existing boreholes, and where there are no boreholes, then they put boreholes. But in some other instances, you find that there is a borehole, but there's no water on the ground. So water tankers are going to be used, because the Department of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation will provide the water tanks. We are working together with them now. They know the needs per school, in the province and in each district. They know that. That's why we made sure that we submit those needs to them, so that when they work on their budget, our schools also must be catered for. So we believe that on the 18th, when learners come to school, every school will have water, like it was indicated here. Chair, there's an issue that is also, it has always been a concern about school nutrition. We are not saying school nutrition now is being transferred to the Department of Social Development. We've never said that. But the Department of Social Development is responsible for poor communities and poor families. So those learners who benefit from school nutrition are the ones that are clients to the department, whose families are clients to the Department of Social Development. That's why now, as we are locked down, those parents and families, they receive food parcels from the Department of Social Development and other charity organizations. They feed the same learners who receive school nutrition from schools. So there is no way where we can say we'll go and feed learners at home. We don't have, the department does not have that infrastructure that we can cook food at school and carry it and go and feed children. And when you feed this child at home, what about the parents? Because parents will be hungry also. That's why we are working with government, and all what the president has said, the 350, the additional to the social grants on children, all those resources are helping the poor families. So that's why we cannot say as a department we are going to feed children from home. That share, we do not have the infrastructure to do that. Then another issue that is a challenge is our ECD grade R, and it's a fact that when we looked at grade 12 and grade 7, we did not take grade R into consideration. We thought that grade R will come in as grade 1 comes to school, but what members are indicating here that the grade R is still young. And if the parent now has to go to school, then who will remain with that grade R child? We fully understand that as a department will go back and work on that, because what we looked at were the private grade R facilities, that those ones following all the guidelines and regulations of COVID-19 and working together with the department and checking their areas and monitoring the physical distance of children, those ones could be allowed to operate. But now we can see that even those grade R in schools, we need to look at it. That's why communication is a continuous thing, Chair. We'll continue communicating with you. That's why we even made what I will regard as a mistake, because we invited the portfolio committee to a meeting because we felt that we are moving, and the portfolio committee at that time, you did not come up with the timetable for meetings. That's why as a department, we ended up inviting the portfolio committee and the select committee to for the meeting, so that we brief, we don't go a long distance and then you guide us after we have committed a mistake. What the department is taking into consideration is the lives of South Africans. If one child contacts COVID-19 and come home living with 13 people, you have put all those 13 people in danger. All those things we are looking at, we are not just forcefully wanting to do these things, but at the same time we have a responsibility of education, of educating the nation. So I believe I've covered most of the questions, though I know, because most of the questions were just a repetition of data. That's why as a department, we are not taking the private online teaching by schools which have resources as teaching is continuing. We are not taking that, because those children who are not connected, who do not have those resources, will be left behind. That's why we say we are going to rework the curriculum, that we say, okay, we are going to cover these topics and learners are going to be assessed on these topics. And that's it. We are not going to say all the work that has been done by those schools which have resources, then we count it and we assess all the learners based on that. We know that we don't, South Africa is not the same. There are those that live in affluent areas and there are those who live in deep rural areas. So we cannot disadvantage our children who live in deep rural areas. So we cannot say we are going to buy tablets for each and every learner, because that is not going to solve the problem of connectivity. You can have a tablet, but you cannot have data and connectivity. Then what will be the use of that? So we are going to teach our children. Our children need teachers. It's a teacher in front of a child. There is no a device that can replace a teacher. So that's why we are saying, let the children go to school, but we are not forcing. We are working together with all South Africans. We are working together with the portfolio committee, with the select committee, with the social cluster and teacher unions and SGPs. We are working with everybody. Then when this plan is approved, then we go to school. On the 18th, our children are going to school. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, DM. I take it that she has responded to all the concerns that were raised by the members. I want to check with you, Ntate Nchabeleng. Is there anything from your side? Or because we are 14 minutes behind the schedule. So can I check with you, Chair, if there's anything that you want to raise?
No, for me, it's just a salute to all the troops deployed in this vicious combat with COVID-19. And I just say, let's let the spirit of internationalism, international solidarity prevail. And that we should share information with our neighbors on education and development of our children, so that we can survive as a region, survive as a continent, and survive as humanity. Our children are our most valuable asset, and we'll do everything in our powers to ensure that our children and ourselves do not perish in this storm. Thank you very much. And to the ministerial team, to the minister and the team, we say we take the call from the Second World War battle cry. Tolka period nyet nasat. Aswele move. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want to mention that there are stakeholders that really would have wanted to participate here, but we have made it clear that this is a normal portfolio committee and select committee of Parliament. It is only members of Parliament that participate in these meetings. And with that, then I would request them to send their concerns or questions to my secretary. I will then forward them to the department and they will get to be responded to. But we were just having a normal meeting of Parliament, so we are not allowing anyone to participate in this meeting. It is only honorable members of Parliament that participate in these meetings. DM, all the best with your plans, and all the best with the future. It is our future that you are leading. It is our kids that you are leading, and you can see if members of Parliament are so concerned. What about a layman on the street? What about a parent that has got a child that wants to see the child progressing on the streets? That's why I'm saying that we just need to pray. We just need to understand that we shall overcome. We just need to understand that this will also pass. And all the best to you and your department. And I have said, that we appreciate the work that you have done. We know that you are in our prayers as the department. Our government, we are praying with our government that we get through this period. And the meeting is adjourned. We are 17 minutes behind the schedule. I think we have done very well. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all the technical team that has been supporting this meeting. Thank you very much. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
I wish you should be. Yeah, she's. How do I get out of this?